Venla. So Venla, welcome. Thank you so much for coming and joining us on Terrific Tuesdays. We're so appreciative.
Thank you, Adrian. Thank you for the introduction. I am not going to hype myself like you just hyped me. So that was about how long that lasted. But yeah, nice to see some familiar faces, also new faces. Very honored to be part of this group and chat today. This is always, I'm out of my comfort zone when I'm speaking in front of people. So bear with me if I start to stumble on my words or whatsoever, but I'm going to get started here. So yeah, so those that don't know me, my name is Venla Hovi. I come from Finland. I started playing hockey when I was 4 years old. I started skating when I was 2. So very much kind of like the Canadian story of most hockey players. So the first thing you do is you put skates on. My first skates were figure skates that I got for Christmas. I wore them once and I actually threw them at my mom, which sounds really dangerous, but I wanted the same type of skates that my brother had. So I quickly kind of followed his path and wanted to play hockey and stayed on that road for 28 years that my career lasted for. My childhood growing up in Finland, I played basically every sport possible. Very much like to encourage everyone to try different sports. I feel like there's no sport that you can find inspiration from to what you're doing yourself. So I think all those things that you learn from other people, other sports are always crucial for your own career. So even if you're older, get out there, try different things. It's all about learning and becoming the best you that you can be. So I thought about for a little while what to talk about today, and funny thing, well, not so funny, but I actually got accepted for to do a TED Talk. This happened in the spring, so I got pushed to apply. As I said, I'm horrified of speaking or doing anything like this in front of a big crowd. You're just, a small group compared to a TED Talk, but I applied. Got to the next round. I started to get a little sweaty, and then then I actually got accepted. Luckily, as for now, it's canceled because of Corona. So some positives coming out of this. So I get some more time to prepare. But I'm sort of taking the same route as I would have done for my TED Talk. So funny enough, Misha, who actually talked earlier there, my topic is going to be very similar. So I thought about talking about how to get the most out of your athletic career. How are you going to have the most fun? Because being an athlete sometimes becomes really robotic. Every day is, what you need to do. You know what you can't do at most times. You get up, you have to train. You have all these other things you need to do in your life. And it's obvious, as we all know, it's a lot of hard work, but you also want to enjoy it. You want to create memories. And that's something that I thought about, that you don't just go through, whether it's 2 years or whether it's 10 years or more than that. Being a high level athlete, I think it's something that you want to create it, something that you're always going to remember, and something that you created yourself. So I came up with this idea that I managed to do, especially at the end of my career, of creating your own path. So especially playing in a team sport like hockey, I feel like everyone's always telling you what you should do, how you should do it, how are you going to become strong. Like there's always this certain way that especially trainers they think their way is the best way, the ultimate way. And I'm claiming that it's false. I think there's so many different ways to get there. Think about okay, this is a really stupid example, but think about, okay, you want pizza. So you can either go get pizza from a restaurant, you can cook your own pizza, you can order it, you can decide what you want it. So there's all these different ways that you're going to get the pizza and the type of pizza you want. So same thing applies to whatever sport you're doing, is who are you wanting to be? So I always thought about, especially at the end of my career, what type of player do I want to be? What type of teammate do I want to be? So all these people always telling me this is how you're going to do it, but I am not like the other people on my team. So we're all very unique, whether you are in an individual sport or not. And obviously all the trainers there are always, saying science says this and that. Yes, but you still want to make it your own path. Be creative, make it something that you really, really enjoy. How I'm supporting my claim here is, so I played in 3 Olympic Games, and I actually train in completely different ways to all those Olympics. To start, my first Olympics in Vancouver 2010, I had trained way too much growing up, especially as a teenager. There was no guidance, there was no knowledge. It was just all about do a lot, do it heavy, do more, do more. So it was always just about, okay, 2 to 3 practices a day for hockey, like 2 hours long, every time max effort. It was insane. That's not how it is anymore, thankfully. But so I started creating all these injuries that got to the point before Vancouver Olympics that I could barely walk. Somehow I was able to get on the ice. Skating is actually pretty good for your body. So on the ice, I always felt okay. But any type of training that I had to do, whether it was some sort of lifting, whether it was running, sprinting, I couldn't do any of that anymore. So it was either I find my own way, take the risk of training in a completely different way than all my teammates did, or I'm going to get to the point of not making the team because the coaches don't want me because I can't even move anymore. And at the time, there was coaches that said, "Oh, you're injured because you're not in good shape," and ended up being, "Oh, I'm injured because I'm training way too much." So being a young person, really motivated, determined, someone telling you you're not doing enough or you're not this or that, then you're just going to do more. And everyone knows what happens when you do way too much all the time. So for the first Olympics, I started water running. So putting like a belt around your hips, you probably know what that is. That was my only way of training. So I went every morning around 5 or 6 a.m. with the rest of the 90-year-olds in the pool in Finland. So I trained like that 5 or 6 times a week. I started doing all my speed workouts in the pool by doing jumps in the water. Obviously found out that water is really good for you. So everyone in the group who's swimming or whatever sport you're doing, get in the pool. It's really good for your body, whether it's recovery. You can be so creative in the water. And in the end, I started feel less pain. I started to get stronger. I was able to eat a lot of food, and I love food, so that was a good good thing about being in the water, because you actually use so many calories every workout you do in the water. So that was kind of my training story for the first Olympics, and I was able to play healthy. The season ended in knee surgeries, but still I got there. I got where I wanted to be. I was in good shape. And then the next 4 years, I started to get into more sort of body weight training. So I noticed that I want to do something else. I don't want to just go in the pool. I want to get stronger. I was really scrawny, skinny, young hockey player, and I thought I wanted to do something else. And I obviously had a good support system to kind of learn to do new things. So the next 4 years, I did a lot of gymnastics. I did a lot of body weight training, all sorts of stuff to kind of get stronger, not so much weights, but I was still able to start to build on some muscle with the injuries I had that I created. And that also worked out for me just as well as the 4 years leading up to Vancouver. And it's fun. It's fun to change things up, because if you train a certain way for years and years and years, it's so fun to just try something else. There's always the pressure from coaches. Oh, why aren't you doing it this way? And if you did this, you're going to be more like her. And I found that the worst thing as a player was to hear that a coach told you, "I want you to be like someone else," because I'm not someone else. I'm myself, and I'm proud of who I am, and I want to create. I want to create myself. So Yeah, empowerment, Cole. But so that was that. And then I ended up coming to Winnipeg. And there's some people that know Sean Preston, who was the strength and conditioning coach for Bison Sports. And then so I had a chat with him, and I said, you know, I'm much older than all these other players on the team. I'm way more experienced. I've trained more, and this is where my body's at. Haven't lifted in years. I wasn't able to do it. And then he just told me, well, soon you can. So we started working towards that. Um, Ended up just absolutely loving lifting. So so I went from being this water runner to, you know, gaining a lot of weight from muscle and lifting every day, and him, you know, having to tell me some days, so you're not lifting today. And I was so sad because I just wanted to do it all the time, and just build up on what I had done before. And I thought by the end of that, and you know, at the end of my career, all those different things that I had done along the way, I never dropped anything completely. I just built up on what I had done before. So I learned that, you know, my body recovers in the water. So then I told him, and then we built my program where my recovery workout is always in the water. So I kind of carried on that toolkit that I had built, and just added on it to become the best player physically that I could be. And I think the best thing about all this was like kind of deciding myself. He obviously wrote down my workouts, but it was me who decided what I'm gonna do, uh, because I had got to the point of having enough experience, knowing my body, trusting the process, all those things that I built the trust with him to be able to tell him to build that program for me that suits me the best, no one else. And just believing in it every single day, no matter what happened. Just keep it, just, you know, keep going, keep communicating with your trainer, the people around you, to find the best way for yourself. I've said that a million times, but I literally can't say that enough, because I see so many young athletes, so many young players, they're always paired up with someone older, which is great, but always remember you are not them. And there might be another way that works better for you, that has worked for them. So that's kind of what Misha was saying too. Good example of my warm up for games was, as you know, people that come from the Nordic countries, they do a lot of cardio. They run. So like you see hockey players coming from Finland that go for a 20-minute run, and then they start their warm up. I didn't run 1 meter other than my couple of sprints that I did during my warm up. So I needed to do certain stretches that I knew that will prevent my body from getting injured. And sometimes if I felt like it, I laid on the ground, I shut my eyes, I was by myself in the dressing room, and I just imagined myself doing the things in the game that I wanted to do that day. And my warm up was really short, and my teammates probably were like, "Oh, she's so lazy. She lives in Canada now, and they don't run. They're not in good shape," and all the rest of it. But I enjoyed it, and it worked for me. So, uh, so that's sort of kind of what Misha was saying too, where I really liked the idea of you can always learn from other people, but it's not always the way that works for you. I'm trying to look at my notes so I don't forget about anything. I'm gonna wrap this up with Corona and the weird times we're living in. Try and tie it up to what I just talked about. So obviously times that we're not used to, especially as people, most in this group, that we live our lives through movement. And my job was being on the ice 4 to 6 hours every day, and being kind of sore from too much movement. Now I've gone to too little movement, and not feeling great mentally or physically because of that. Very important, again, to find the ways that work for you during this time. There's no right way. So if you read 3 steps to feeling great during this time, and you try them and you're like, well, this doesn't work for me, I don't want to wake up at 5 a.m. during this time when I can actually sleep in a little bit and then get going. Just remembering really trying to find the ways that make you feel good. Don't be too hard on yourself, especially the young athletes in this group. Always trying to kind of tell people, athletes, that this might not be the time that you are going to get the most quality out of your practices, just because the tools and everything you have to work out, you might not be, you might not have the usual weights and all the equipment to that you have on a daily basis for your training. But this might be the time to be creative and grow other ways than just the physical side of it. So taking care of your mind, for myself, doing yoga daily, whether it's just for 5 minutes, helps me a lot to focus on other things that I need to get done. Sometimes not setting up your goals up here. Maybe if you decide to, today I'm just going to do this much, then you can get that done. And then that actually motivates you to do other things. So again, just being super creative, trying something new that you never have time to do when you're actually in your routine of going to work, going to school, doing your workouts, competing. This is the time to really do something that you've always wanted to try, but you've never had time. That's everything I had. I really hope that everyone got something out of that and it made sense. That's just something I found from my own career, that I found that I was super happy that I had the courage to go my own way and risk my spot on teams, and just by saying that, no, this is the way I'm doing it. Just because they're doing it this way, I'm doing it my way. Not taking away you need to work hard and all the rest of it, but that's something that I think might be one of the things that I'm the happiest about my own career, especially at the end, was being able to, really get to know myself and create my own path.
Love it. Yeah, no, you use the word courage, and that's something I was thinking as well. It takes a lot of courage to develop, and the other what works for you, and the other piece too. You talked about having a good relationship with your trainers and keeping that communication going, and I think that you also have to have that solid relationship with yourself and understand what works for you. I'm going to invite people if they have. Um, if they have any questions or comments in the chat room. And then I'm just gonna, there's a few things that I underlined in the questions that you responded to that really resonated for me. And you said, I'm most proud of the person I've become through the challenges I've had as an athlete and as a person. And I thought that was a really beautiful statement. And I think even as we look at this COVID time now, this is another challenge we're going through that will help us kind of grow and develop as a person. And I loved where you talked about, especially at the end of my career, where I enjoyed playing so much and I didn't worry about the flaws in my game. I was just myself. And I'm like, oh, that's such a rich statement. And it reminds me of Clara Hughes at the Vancouver Games when she was racing her last race. And she was saying that, she didn't win a gold medal. So a lot of people are like, oh, and she's like, oh, no, I raced a perfect race. Like every stride was beautiful. And I just enjoyed being there. And I think that's the ultimate journey for athletes, is getting to the point where they settle into it. I liked the road to excellence knows no finish line. It really is an ongoing process of becoming. And when you said, I don't like limitations. And the other part too is where you said, I feel anxious and I tell myself it's okay that I feel this way, it will pass. So I think that those are a lot of themes that we talked about. And I think those are really rich things. As I read through those, is there anything else you wanted to say about any of those, Venla?
Yeah, maybe just about the last game that I played that you kind of mentioned before.
Mm-hmm.
Playing for Team Finland for since 2007. I think my first camp with the national team was 2004, all the way to 2019, and always chasing that spot in the gold medal game. As people always say, oh, it's women's hockey, it's US and Canada. And then there's us with 5,000 registered female players, and we have that clear goal on our minds that we're going to make it one day. And most 99% of people always told me, why are you still playing? You're never going to make it to the gold medal game. And then on your mind, you're just kind of like laughing and whatever. I'm like, they just don't know any better. And you just keep working, and you have a group of girls that all believe in it. And it doesn't matter if it happens now, at some point it's going to happen. And then And then it's crazy. Then it's my last game in Finland. I'm going to start to cry.
Yeah, which is okay because it was a powerful moment. So I appreciate your willingness to share it with us. I didn't realize it was your last game. What a beautiful last game, and it was in your home
Yeah,
country.
it's almost like after the game, I was like, I'm so done with this game and everything. Like, I can't, this is enough. I'm never going to experience anything more emotionally or physically, or so it was just like, it just doesn't end any better than that. And honestly, I don't miss it at all. So that's even better.
But yeah, tell us about that game. People might not understand what happened at the end of the game. I was watching it live, and explain to us, because I mentioned that it looked like you had won the game, but then the game kept going. What exactly happened, Venla?
Yeah, so to be honest, I don't even remember the result of the game,
Yeah,
but
understandably.
it kind of happens with those games that you're just playing, and that's when you forget about everything that happened. But yeah, so we scored uh, and basically won the game. So uh, that was, I'm not gonna lie, I don't remember. But anyways, we won and all celebrated the first ever world championship gold for Finnish women's hockey. And so I'm screaming, I'm just like blacked out basically. And then after like a while of celebrations, then there's a whistle and the refs are going to check it. After like not just right away when the goal happened, like this was like us in a pile, sticks, gloves everywhere, and we're like, we just won. This is nuts. And then the ref calls the whistle, and then they go check it. And I don't know how long that waiting time was during that time, but it was probably 5 minutes, which obviously in the moment felt like 5 hours. And they called it off, that it wasn't a goal, that there was goalie interference and all the rest of it. So then whatever, people thought that that was like the end of the world for myself in that moment, but to be honest, in that moment I was like, I'm gonna just put my helmet back on and let's go win the game again. It wasn't like what the heck, like why did they do this, like you can't lose focus at the same time. You always have to remember, what if it isn't a goal. Then we went into a shootout, and obviously our goalie having, I don't know how many saves in a game against the US, we were most of the game in our zone, which is physically pretty exhausting. So the chances of you winning after a game like that when it goes to a shootout are pretty slim. Whatever, obviously, we believed in it in the moment. We end up losing, so kind of your whole world just crashes in the moment. But then, after a little while in the dressing room and talking together, like even though we lost that game, like we made it to the finals for the first time ever in the history, and just the team we had in general, like it just doesn't get any better. So we kind of quickly turned it around to a victory.